So as part of a bigger project that I've been working on in the basement, I was looking to install a floating cabinet that would sit flush with the wall here and couldn't quite find anything with the exact depth that I needed. So I decided to build a sort of box frame to mount behind the cabinet in order to bring it forward to where it would be more or less even with the wall. By the way, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to allow notifications so that you don't miss the full video for this project, where I attempt to build the popular IKEA section cabinet for around 2/3 the cost. But for today's video, the specific part of this build that I wanted to discuss is just how important it is that you are able to pinpoint the location of the studs in your wall, so that you can reliably drill right into the center of each of them in order to support the weight of something as heavy as this cabinet. Now, depending on the specific job, I've used a few different methods to find them, one of which is the Studfinder that you see here. Now, with this Stanley 150 stud sensor that I will link in the description, there are a couple things you have to do in order for it to work properly. For starters, you need to place it on the wall before you squeeze the sides to activate the stud detection. Then also make sure that you are just moving it laterally and not rotating it at all. But even after all of that, you tend to see some inaccuracies, one of which is how they tend to over-detect the width of the stud. So, as you can see on the wall here, I've marked the entire range that the stud detector was showing, which looks to be a width of about 2¼ inch. But we actually have the luxury of walking around to the other side of this piece of drywall in the unfinished part of the basement. And when we take a measurement of the actual stud, you can see that we're just a hair under 1.5 inches. So knowing that the stud detector is capable of presenting a much wider representation than what's actually back there, just be sure to mark the entire width of what it gives you, and then only drill into the exact center, especially if you have to hang any considerable amount of weight like with a cabinet, or when drilling in a carriage bolt for a TV mount or something. Another phenomenon I've noticed with this type of stud finder is that they are capable of giving some false positives when using the electrical detection feature like you see here. So if you're in a situation where you need to figure out on which side of the stud they've run conduit, and you think you're getting a false positive, you can actually turn off the power to the outlet in question, then remove the outlet wall plate and check onto which side they've drilled the junction box. If for some reason you can't see where it's being held from the inside, I've seen people feel around the outside of the J-box with a screwdriver, but if you're going to try this, you have to make sure and do it as carefully as possible so you don't damage anything. If for some reason you still can't figure it out, and you've also tried measuring 16 inches off any nearby studs or nail pops, you can take a small trim nail, ideally something just under 1 inch or so, and lightly tap it through the base of the drywall where you think you found the stud. Something like this is much less likely to go through conduit or a water pipe as compared to drilling a screw in there, but definitely still only use this as a last resort and avoid areas where you know they've stacked plumbing. And if your electrical isn't in conduit, you probably want to avoid this one altogether. You can also just run a magnet along the wall and see if it sticks to any of the drywall screws holding the boards onto the studs. And then there's always your built-in stud detector, aka your knuckle. Just lightly tap on the wall. A more hollow sound means you're in between studs. More of a solid, higher-pitched thud, and that's likely the 2x4. You can hear it quite well in this spot as the sound gets a little higher and less hollow as I get closer to the stud. Well, I hope that helps, and I'll try to link everything I mentioned in the description. But let me know if you have any techniques that I haven't mentioned here, as I'm always looking to drill fewer mistakes into my drywall. I'll see you next time, and thanks for watching.